Greetings everyone, and welcome back to a long overdue episode of Keybounce's Overkill Construction Disorder. This episode will be a talkie while I finish building the minecart elevator. First, I want to apologize for the long gap. I will do my best to make sure this does not happen again. Second, I can now state that I understand the issues of running a multiplayer server as compared to running a single-player world. I've also come to understand that a multiplayer world does not mean that you cannot play solo. Looking back, one of the biggest changes in my world was the decision to switch to multiplayer so that I could play with a friend, Alex Zhang. Many things have come out of that. Overall, I think it was the right decision. But I also think that I need to treat this more as a single-player world that has other people playing in it at times, like an open to LAN world,
It's 9 o'clock.
rather than as an only play with friends world. So where am I at this point, and what's happening now? Back in episode 203, in version 1.2.5, the big thing was that the new base had been built by Non-Firefly and Alex Zhang, and the central staircase needed to be replaced with a high-speed elevator. I tested a variety of up and down systems. The one thing I did not test on the down that probably would work perfectly was vines. Unlike ladders, they have no collision box, so you cannot hit them and die, and they slow you down. But vines cannot support the minecarts that are needed to go up. That episode ended in 1.3.2. In the process of building, the iron supply got used up. Episode 204 was some mining in the caves. Then 205 was the start of a trip to Twilight Forest to rob a hollow hill of iron to resume the building. 4 sessions later, the first 2 produced and uploaded, the third lost, and the fourth to be uploaded from version 1.3.2 to 1.4.5, Twilight Forest versions 11 through 13.2. Excuse me. And now there is enough iron to finish. And as you can see, I'm working on that now. And I'm trying to schedule a 4 or 5 person session, at least 3, to finish off the silverfish infestation that still exists in the hill. So what happens next? Our forest has a number of issues with being developed over several different revisions of the mod. It is now at 15.1, and I'll attempt to wipe all the chunks that are not in this hollow hill's base. If I can't get that to work, the whole forest will be wiped. And the next thing to deal with is Mistcraft and custom ore generation. Many of you will know about vanilla Minecraft's ore behavior. No matter where you dig, you find stuff, and there's no reason to go searching. Digging down lower is always better than digging higher. Digging at 10 and 11, dodging lava in a straight line, is the best you can do. I hate that. Custom ore generation gives a choice of veins or clouds, and the veins are at different height levels, and it works much better. I have been thinking about this, and while I want to have us building stuff in the overworld, there needs to be a reason to go elsewhere. So I will probably set up the configs to give more ores in Mistcraft Ages, using them for mining, as well as clouds in the Twilight Forest, just so there is a difference between the various worlds that we can mine in. And this is a point to consider. Do we set up the overworld to use veins, which will give us many extra tunnels when dug out, or clouds that will give us a few large rooms? A quick look over the config seems to indicate that about 4% of chunks will be the center of emerald clouds in the extreme hills, and the base is pretty much in landscape dominated by extreme hills. So that would mean 1, perhaps 2 cloud rooms in the area of the base, assuming I find them. Very likely yes, guaranteed no. And while there's a lot of ocean chunks around, lapis has drastically lower generation. So clouds in the overworld would pretty much force us to use ages or the forest for mining, while veins would give us some overworld resources. I plan on giving clouds a try, and if we wind up being totally frustrated, going back to veins. Note that this really hurts iron. Clouds of iron are only found in cold biomes, and there are none within reasonable distance of our base. Sorry. As I said, if we are totally frustrated, and there are both Twilight Forest hollow hills and clouds and Mistcraft ages, we can go back to veins. I have 2 old construction episodes to produce and upload. One is our Overkill wheat farm, and the other is the half Overkill doorbell. The wheat farm works. It only depends on water flow. In fact, with, was it 132 or 142, a bug where the water flowing down would destroy objects was finally fixed, and that actually made it perform better. I want to convert the top of it to a completely overdone mushroom farm. Every Let's Play series needs an overdone, pointless project, whether it's a boat to planks sawmill or something else. The doorbell, however, excuse me, the doorbell, however, depends on redstone and doesn't work properly. More on that in a moment. I took a look at Direwolf's current season. I had heard that he was using Mistcraft and wanted to see what he was doing with it. Instead, I see him building 9x9 rooms with automation and tech mods as the primary focus and magic mods as a secondary focus. I won't do 9x9 rooms. I'll just say no. I like to build stuff with the landscape, not against the landscape. I build in caves, in mine shafts, etc. because for me, part of the challenge is to work with the existing landscape and fit into it. The south wall of our hill has plenty of places for me to work. Many places in the old island are cramped. Several places in the landscape were altered by Alex during his early days of, I'm just going to do this. And I did just make those bigger. And while I've managed to get him out of this behavior, I'm looking forward to working down into mine shaft and hillside without major alterations like that. This does not mean that I won't build rooms or cavities. Depending on what happens with the mine shaft, I may not need to. As I said, part of the challenge. For some things that I want to do, such as that wheat farm, I need a smooth canvas of solid blocks to dig into. The almost complete lack of caves in the base's hill is why we chose that hill in the first place. I'm not yet decided on using a nether hub for linking books and portals, or if I should carve a launch room in the base. Some things will need tall rooms, more than the 4 or 5 meters that I can find in naturally occurring caves, more than the 1 or 2 emerald and silverfish clouds turned rooms that I expect to find while mining. Other things can be above ground. The sheep farm that Alex built underground did not behave any better than the above ground one and is seriously short on grass. Now that sheep don't have significant leaks, I'm going to actually make one work. I'll probably fix up the old one on the island and leave Alex's for him to play with. Equally, I'll probably put cows and chickens on the island just to have them out of the way. And I still need a few large cavities for statues and other decorations. And there's one good-looking one under the ocean that needs to be lit up. Regarding redstone and automation, I'm looking forward to 1.5. I'm looking forward to redstone devices and circuits actually working properly in multiplayer. You've probably seen my doorbell. It worked perfectly in 1.2.5 single player and nothing later. The whole problem with circuits and loops in 1.3 pretty much made me give up on non-trivial redstone. While 1.4 works better, it still is not nearly good enough. Fixing the doorbell into the original planned overkill, using instant wire to send the door signal deep into the caves and mines so that I would know when to head home, is probably pointless if I do move to the new base. So it's probably going to stay half finished, although I will finish the off timer to force it to reset. Beyond that, for 1.5 I will be using redstone, hoppers, and droppers. I will be doing something with inventory cleanup and furnaces, something with automatic sorting. I don't know what can be done in vanilla yet. If you don't know, I dislike automation. It's not that I can't do it. I could put in computer turtles and program them to play the game for me. I could design grinders or gravity falls or anything of the kind. But then I may as well just fetch stacks of supplies out of TMI or NEI. I'll use those to recover from game bugs and game problems, but I am going to play this game. The only thing that I cannot get in reasonable quantities without a grinder up till now has been gunpowder. And with the new witch huts and attacking witches, suddenly there is what looks to be a reasonably workable source of gunpowder. And there really isn't any other need for a grinder. Of course, that means finding brand new swamp chunks or getting KmOcd to unload existing swamp chunks. Or ages. Probably miscraft ages. I don't like the behavior of villagers, and trading. I'm really hoping that 1.5 sees some sort of fix to that behavior. If not, I will make something to exploit it. There really is no reason to try to do fair trading with villagers right now. I'm not sure if I'll be using it for emerald blocks or what. Now, for another topic, donations. I am going to ask for donations, but that does not necessarily mean money donations. What I'm going to request is stuff to help my channel out. What is being offered to donors is either dedication plaques in the tree farm, and yes, this means getting lost reltos set up in this world, or mining veins. I won't be offering tunnels in the branch mine, because we're not going to be doing that. COG makes it pointless. There will be actual veins in ages, and in the overworld if we get too frustrated with clouds. There will be cloud sections in the Twilight Forest, and possibly the overworld. And on the topic of ages, I'm also going to let donors write books. Yes, I said let donors write books. Until the symbol learning overhaul comes out, we work with creative mode notebooks. And the question of what's a decent world to make is a serious question. So I'm going to let the people who helped the channel out with their time decide what to put into the books that we will play with. So if you want to see us playing in highly unstable ages, you can. Or if you think we need to work with something else that isn't unstable but has some other point of interest, let us know. I suspect that viewer-written ages will be one of the more popular aspects moving forward. And it's something I'm looking forward to. I sort of imagine an idiot abroad type of, okay, go here to this place and do such and such type of things. So what am I looking for donations? I'm looking for people to transcribe episodes for captions. I'm looking for people to provide helpful and useful advice for building and exploration or editing. I'm looking for people willing to play Find the Base and download our world map and locate the hidden new base whose coordinates we have not revealed. If you help publicize my channel, just get 3 people to subscribe, that counts. And if you want to send me money, you can. I'm really very flexible here. My primary goal is to drive the channel. Help with the series, and you can get a plaque in the tree farm, a mining zone, your name on an age, or perhaps you have a better idea. On the subject of videos, I have 2 new techniques to try to make them come out faster and with less editing work. The first is a mod that gives in-game recording support that in initial testing manages to maintain about 20 frames per second at short to short plus 32 render distance. If this does work, that's sufficient to film carving and building, Let me know if you think this episode is sufficient, for example. The second approach is a better way to mix my voice audio with the game to speed up my editing. Sadly, it will distort colors a little. Reds, such as the nether, go grayer, and greens, such as grass, go darker. I did find an editor that will do this without distorting colors, but it wants to make a 90,000 kbps temporary copy using an animation codec and 90 plus gigs of temp space for a 48-minute source recording is really hard for me to work with, especially considering that I'm usually working with 2 to 3 hours of source recordings. To put this in perspective, QuickTime Players normally records at about 24,000 kbps for motion JPEG, and even Apple's intermediate codec is around the same level. 90 is overkill even for me. I normally find that 6,800 kbps lets me have perfect playback quality of a Minecraft recording during editing with no loss of quality. One more low priority item that I'd like feedback on. There are a number of very interesting survival or construction challenge maps that I have considered bringing in as ages. Doing so would be done in a non-damaging manner. A disarm book into that world, so I don't bring anything unearned into the challenge, with a normal linking book back home. If and when I am able to eventually make a normal linking book back into that challenge world, then I can and would bring normal supplies in. This would permit playing those challenges without having to rebuild everything from scratch. I hate having to rebuild pointlessly. Note that I cannot do this for any challenge map that uses a nether or special custom rules without some serious work. There's a nice one, Zombie Island, that is supposed to be played with mob griefing off, for example, and there's the new ocean block map that has a custom nether. On the other hand, there's at least 2 good-looking continental discovery maps for my next overkill concept. Finally, and now something that is important, mod blocks in the overworld. Up until now, I have had a 100% pure vanilla overworld for blocks in the world. Items from mods, yes. Blocks, no. If a mod does not update and we move forward, we want things to continue to work. That was the original idea. For example, shelves worked in 1.2.5 single player and has died since. Since then, there's something kind of important. I want to build with the colored wool and red rock from EBXL. Seems simple, right? Not only do things like fences, gates, etc. require depending on custom stuff too, Scott Killen has confirmed that EBXL 4 has a very good chance of no backwards compatibility at all. While that may not be until August, that means that in 6 or 7 months, everything I build will become full of holes. So, do I risk being forced to say start over? Do I put construction with EBXL or Twilight Forest blocks in ages? Should I stick them in pocket dimensions? That's a nice new mod, by the way. Small, finite dimensions, basically big enough for one construction project each. Do you viewers have any recommendations? Well, that's the current status of the world. I will be regarding it as 75% my personal world, 25% our shared world, at least until summer. That means more solo play. That means simpler and faster but less editable voice recordings. And as I said, let me know if this is good enough video quality, especially those of you that watch 480p on YouTube. I normally view YouTube at 360p and can only tell that the source looks worse this way with no clue about the final result. Alright, thank you for watching, thank you for listening, and please leave your comments and feedback. My goal here is to entertain, and your responses help. Have a good night. Thank you. Bye-bye.